Hi, Dr. Ballard. I hope you are well. I'm going to share my screen with you in just a moment. Okay, so took me a minute to figure out how to work Zoom and how to work recording on my own. I had to call a bunch of people, but we're here now, thank God. I am going to begin the slideshow. Okay, so my topic was empowering young athletes for parental role in a positive motivational climate. Oh, okay, here we go. So, my introduction, we're going to talk about my two objectives, which is parent education on mastery-oriented and ego-oriented motivational climate. And my second objective is using supportive communication to stimulate self-motivation. And finally, we have our activity and our take-home reminders. So let me switch over the slides for you. Okay, so this is my introduction slide. Okay, so what is motivational climate? So, according to Damon Burton from the University of Idaho, motivational climate is defined as setting up a climate or environment that promotes development of a task or a mastery orientation and learning beliefs rather than an ego orientation and capacity beliefs. So, for examples for that would be emphasizing learning over attaining perfect grades in academics and regarding the sport world, improving on trying and working hard over getting medals, beating other kids, and etc. So my target population is parents of athletes aged 8 to 18 years old. So as a parent of children in this age bracket, you are experiencing different levels of talent. Parents of young children are going to place emphasis on enjoying the sport, encouraging your child to try multiple sports and having fun with it. While parents of older athletes are going to be responsible for continued motivation, showing up for games, encouragement during losses, and showing the child to stick with something that they are passionate about. So, why do parents play a vital role in enhancing their child's experience in sports? Well, number one, as a parent, you should be their number one fan. You are their principal support system to get through the highs and the lows of life. You take them to practice in the game so you know everything that goes on. You are there to shape their minds and views on how to handle success and failure. You help build confidence for them. You act as a safe house for them. And you can make or break their passion for sports by how you support them. So, objective one are going to be the types of motivational climate. So there are two types of motivational climate. There's mastery oriented or task involved, and there's also ego involving or performance based. So mastery oriented motivation focuses on it's based on effort, passion, trying, and it has a little emphasis on winning or comparing yourself to others. The primary focus is for athletes to enjoy the sport and work on their own goals. Versus ego involving focuses on it's based on winning, comparing yourself to others. Stress is placed on the athlete to work their way to a higher level competition, and they have a make it or break it attitude. So, what to know about master oriented? So, according to Chris G. Harwood and Sam N. Thrower in the Power of Groups in Youth Sports article that was written in 2020, the task to be performed is the goal for the athletes. So, the focus is on exerting effort and improving personally in a specific task. So, I really find master oriented motivational climate to be extremely positive and uplifting and kind of focuses more on the climb of the journey instead of the top of the hill. It's about the climb, as Miley Cyrus would say. So, What to know about ego-oriented motivational climate. So also, according to Chris G. Harwood and Sam N. Thrower, also in the same article in The Power of Groups in Youth Sports that was written in 2020, high values of an ego climate would indicate that the focus is mostly on demonstrating superior performance compared to other athletes. So this is going to be the parents that are screaming at the 3-year-olds when they play soccer and yelling at the coach, yelling at the other kids, telling their kids, oh, that kid sucks, or you're better than that kid, or just arguments that some very strong-willed people like to do. So, why is it important for parents to adopt a mastery climate over an ego? Well, the researchers also include that creating a mastery climate within a group has positive effects on performance, but it also is places emphasis and also shows on group processes like peer relationships. So, when our athletes are more focused on goal setting, improving overall, learning how to be a good teammate, having good sportsmanship, having respect for themselves, their other players, and coaches, they are likely to remain passionate. They're likely to keep wanting to show up, especially if their parents are the ones that are saying these things and instilling these positive values. It's going to keep them engaged. It's going to give them a better sense of maturity, and it's also going to allow them to work more efficiently and not have as much stress on them during games, meets, tournaments, etc. So, how can we increase motivation for our athletes? So, the first objective is the motivational assessment, and I took this from a test of multiple achievement goal benefits in physical educational activities by Jennifer A. Thomas and Kenneth E. Barron that was written in 2006, page 121, and they are from James Madison University, if I'm not mistaken. And they did a study regarding motivational climate in physical education. And one of the question sheet that they gave to the athletes was similar to what I wrote here. I just changed the wording for parents. So the motivational type assessment, they you're going to choose the following answers which you feel most aligned with. So 3 points for strong agreement, 2 for medium agreement, and 1 for completely disagreeing with a statement. So on the left side, we have I encourage my child to focus on skill improvement. I reward my child for trying hard. I encourage my child to learn new skills. I encourage my child to positively acknowledge weaknesses, but encourage them to work towards improvement. On the right-hand side, we have I encourage my child to be others. I encourage my child to be better skilled than their opponents. I tell my child that they are better than others. And I tell my child that they are the only ones who carry the team. So you're going to tally up your points for each column. And at the end, you're going to add up all the 3s, 2s, and 1s for both sides. And the higher the number, the more likely you are to fall into that motivational climate category. So, why is it important to know where I fall? As a parent, understanding where you fall in the motivational climate will help you make changes to best support your child. If you scored higher on the left side, that means you are likely to fit into the master-oriented climate, which means your athlete likely feels confident, supported, and has a healthy relationship for the sport. If you scored higher on the right side, that means you are likely to fit in the ego-oriented climate, meaning that your child may be focused on winning, beating others, and only focusing on performance rather than overall growth. This means your child might have an unhealthy relationship with the sport and therefore might be at risk for losing passion. Now, so for the second idea in this objective, we are going to listen to this YouTube video of a NCAA coach on his take on athletes and parents who have an ego-centered focus.
Recruiting enthusiastic kids is harder than it's ever been because every kid watches TV and they watch the NBA or they watch Major League Baseball or they watch the NFL, whatever sport they watch, WNBA, it doesn't matter. And what they see is people just being really cool. So they think that's how they're going to act. And they haven't even figured out which foot to use as a pivot foot, and they're going to act like they're really good players. You see it all the time. You see it at every AAU tournament. You see it every high school game. So recruiting kids that are like really upbeat and loving life and love the game and have this tremendous appreciation for when their teammates do something well, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. So on our team, me, my coaching staff, we put a huge premium on body language. And if your body language is bad, you will never get in the game. Ever. I don't care how good you are. If somebody says, well, you just benched Stewie for, 35 minutes in the Memphis game a couple of years ago. Yeah, I did. Oh, that was to motivate her for the South Carolina game the following Monday. No, it wasn't. Stewie was acting like a 12-year-old. So I put her on the bench and said, sit there. It doesn't matter on our team. Now, the other coaches might say, well, you can do that because you got three other, All-Americans. I get that. I understand that. But I'd rather lose than watch kids play the way some kids play. I'd rather lose. And they're allowed to get away with just whatever. And they're always thinking about themselves. Me. I didn't score, so why should I be happy? I'm not getting enough minutes. Why should I be happy? That's the world that we live in today, unfortunately. And kids check the scoreboard sometimes because they're going to get yelled at by their parents if they don't score enough points. Don't get me started. So when I look at my team, they know this. When I watch game film, I'm checking what's going on the bench. And if somebody's asleep over there, somebody doesn't care, somebody's not engaged in the game, they will never get in the game. Ever. And they know that. They know I'm not kidding.
So this video is extremely important as a parent to watch and listen to what this professional collegiate basketball coach is talking about in regards to players and parents and the way that they behave, their motivational climate, and the way that they present themselves. And what he is saying in regards to kids being only centered on themselves, playing like a 12-year-old where they don't really know much and they have this ego of, oh, I'm the best, or I'm going to do this, or I deserve to have my playing time. I deserve to constantly be put in. I deserve to be a first string player. Having that attitude is not going to last very long, and it's definitely not going to demonstrate to professional and collegiate coaches like him of good sportsmanship and overall player maturity. And a coach definitely does not want to have a parent that is going to be harping on their child. You have to win. You have to get this goal. If you don't score, then I'm going to be disappointed in you. If you don't score, then that means you're not going to get a scholarship. Yada, yada, yada. As a parent, you need to be their cheerleader. You need to tell them, hey, let's look at what we need to work on, but I have this solution. I have this technique we can try out. Hey, let's talk to coach and let's figure out what we need to do to get you to improve for your own good. Not just, for bragging rights or to uplift the ego, But for overall player development,
Recruiting enthusiastic kids.
so second objective is using supportive parent to athlete communication to increase self-motivation. So, why does this matter? Having positive communication with your athlete will not only demonstrate how much you care, but also it will help them shift from an ego-centered mindset to focusing more on improving personally and also enjoying the sport. Doing so will help prevent burnout, increase your child's sportsmanship, and allow your child to remain motivated to do well. How do we start doing this? Well, put yourself in the shoes of your athlete. Imagine what it would feel like to have extensive pressure on winning, beating others, and making it far, getting signed professionally, making D1, being All American. And imagine the weight it feels for your athlete every practice and every game to think if I don't win and I mess up, my parent is going to scream at me. I'm going to hear it from coach. I'm going to hear it from the athletes. And you, as an athlete, you just get placed in this really dark bubble, and all the pressure just keeps pounding on your back. Or imagine if think to yourself as an athlete, if I don't make this shot, I lose everything. I lose a game, I lose the trust in my teammates, I lose my coach. Um, seeing that I'm trying, I lose, my parents' support. They're not going to want to watch me anymore. I'm not going to make it far. How am I going to get signed? How am I going to get more playing time? How am I going to make it, into the professional field? Imagine being in the shoes of your child and with the sense of if I don't do this, everything goes away. Now sit in that and think to yourself how straining and how stressful and just how sad it must feel as a child to feel that way. Now, imagine being in the shoes of your athlete with a sense of enjoyment for the sport, placing emphasis on, hey, let's improve overall, let's have some goals, and let's find ways to get you there. Let's make sure that you're a good teammate. Let's show up to practice and let's learn from our mistakes and just do this for fun. Imagine the difference in stress, imagine the difference in motivation, and imagine the different climate and effort that would bring to your athlete if you developed the second outlook. So, an idea for for good support, good parent to athlete communication is write a letter to your athlete. Now, I want you to include the following: why you're proud of them, your goal for them and the sport, some pieces of advice you have, what you learned from this info session, what you plan to incorporate into your feedback after games, and express to them that this is their journey, not our journey, and that you are mainly there to cheer them on no matter the outcome. Hearing this as a child will really alleviate some anxieties and it will definitely take the pressure off and just allow them to focus on themselves and focus on improving overall and build a better relationship with the sport. So, our idea two talks about rewiring your thinking and feedback. So, you want to switch your thinking from Johnny, you have to score a goal today at today's game to, hey, Johnny, let's try to work on passing the ball to your teammates. Let's try to not be afraid to target the opponent. Let's try to um, run faster, or let's try to give better support to our teammates, or let's try to work on our communication with others. And you want to provide different skills for them as you coach them before they get to the game. And you want to remove any kind of ego-centered thinking to a more mastery level task orientation level of thinking. You want to focus on more appreciation for your athlete, other players, and coaches. When you're, if your athlete sees you actively caring and actively giving them positive feedback, and you're motivating them and you're putting life into them and the sport, it is going to go so far if they see you show up to games, if they see you give more positive feedback than constantly being put down, if they see that you have, if you're supporting their teammates, if you and the other teammates' parents are supporting the team as a whole, if they see you have good communication and you're praising the coach and you are saying, "Hey coach, like what do you need from me to do as a parent? Like is there anything you need? What can I help?" That is going to go so far with your athlete, and it is going to completely switch their mindset and is going to give them a better sense of how they need to act if they're going to um, proceed with the sport and if they plan to go to play professionally and if they decide to continue the sport even after. And it's also really good practice for being a good person. A lot of the times, athletes and families kind of forget that they have a whole other identity outside of being an athlete. And sometimes, if you just zone in on, I need to be the best player, and just focusing on you as an athlete, the whole other area of your life is going to lack a lot, and it's going to lack on a lot of different social skills and maturity. So, seeing your parent as the athlete give those good feedbacks, having good communications with your coach, having good communications with other players, giving support, and really just being their cheerleader instead of, come on, if you don't do this, then you're not going to do well, or hey, if you don't get this now, then you're never going to get it, or you're going to be SOL if you don't get it together. It is going to negatively impact them, and it's not going to be good practice for them outside of the sport world. So, for the interactive activity, we're going to watch this clip from Disney's Inside Out 2, and I want you to think about Riley being your child and anxiety being you or the ego-centered motivation.
Come on. I'm not good enough. You have to win. Then, guys, minutes. No. Grace, are you okay? I'm here. God, oh no, what did I do? No, no, no. I can fix it. I can fix it. No, good enough. All right, put it together. All right, get it together. I'm not good enough. You have to score. Put it to a pressure.
You don't get to choose who Riley is. Anxiety? We need to let her go. I'm sorry. I was just trying to protect her. But you're right. We don't get to choose who Riley is. Need to be. Okay, so I want to talk about this clip right here. Watching this for the first time, it made me feel extremely emotional because there have been times in my life, both as a student, as a young woman, as an athlete, where either anxiety, has kind of been my own thoughts in my mind, or whenever I swam growing up, my parents, sometimes, majority of the time, um, they would always tell me, you have to swim, faster. You've got to do this, you've got to do that. And I would always feel frustrated, like, why can't you just tell me I did good enough? Why can't you say good effort? Why can't you say, hey, I'm proud of you? It would always be, you have to do this so that you can, get first place. Or, you know, sometimes more family members would be there and they would all kind of like chime in and say, well, you should try stretching out your arms, because if you you know increase your wingspan and your stroke count, then you're gonna cut off time. And for me, I already heard the feedback from my own coach, so I already knew that. And chances are I probably felt pretty crummy inside because I didn't either beat my time, or I got last place, or I didn't do as I expected. I was anxious before the race. I was anxious during it, and right after, it was like a sense of disappointment and a sense of, now I have to kind of face everybody. And it would always make me feel let down, and it kind of gave me that I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to be good enough because of what everyone's telling me. And it really destroyed my passion for the sport. And that's kind of why, one of the reasons why I walked away from the sport for 2 years, because I kept getting all this feedback. And I went from having that sport being my emotional and mental outlet to me no longer being passionate, me not wanting to set foot in a pool ever again, because of the constant feedback that I would get, when all I wanted was for someone to acknowledge that the sport was helping me and it was an outlet for me, and that I was able to find myself with that. And it really destroyed my confidence, it destroyed my passion for the sport. And so watching this as an adult now, it makes me want to advocate even more for parents like those watching how important it is for you to be their cheerleader and to instill positive values in your child and telling them, hey, I'm proud of you for how you did today. I saw that you were trying. I appreciate the way that you were with your teammates. I really appreciate how engaged you were in the game. That is what you need to focus on because, like, Riley is having a panic attack in this, and she's having all those anxiety and those, low self worth statements going on through her mind. It's causing her to freeze and it caused her to be ejected from that super important tryout because all of those thoughts were going into their head. Now, imagine she's probably, your child is probably already having those thoughts by themselves. Now, imagine you as a parent are adding on to that instead of uplifting them. It's going to make them freeze and shock, just like how Riley is. And it took Joe to tell her, we don't get to decide who Riley is anymore. You have to let her go. And that is the takeaway that I want to be grasped from this presentation is you as a parent, this is their journey. This is not your journey. You lived that life already. Now it is your time to support your child and make them be excited for life. Make them, life is difficult as it already is. That child is probably using that sport as a way to escape the stresses of life. If they're not doing good in school, let them think that they're good at this sport or give them some positive motivation and just breathe life into your child when it comes to anything because the last thing you want to do is crush your child's personality and just crush the passion that they have for life. So, to end with this presentation, my take home strategies are the sandwich method for feedback. So, as an athlete, as a former athlete myself, I really appreciated when my swim coach, when I was in middle school, she would use sandwich method. So she would start out with a positive comment on our performance. So she would just say how proud of me she was, how happy she is that she sees me loving the sport, and that she would just name one skill that she thought that I was doing well. And then she would give me constructive feedback, but offer solutions. Then she would add with another positive, a different positive note about trying and my good sportsmanship and the fact that I show up and knowing that I would probably improve. That is so important as a parent to do for your child because they're probably already going to hear feedback from other teammates if they lost or if they didn't do well in. They're probably going to hear feedback from their coach, and they're already probably saying those things to themselves. The last thing they need is for their support system, the person that they have at home, the person that's supposed to kind of hold their hand and walk them through life, for them to say, you suck too. That is soul crushing. Another take home strategy is being a listener versus a speaker. A lot of the times, we don't realize we need to sit back and we need to listen rather than talk. I am a victim of this. Sometimes in when I'm talking to like my brother or my dad, I just talk, 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 and I don't really listen to how they feel. So, you want to listen to your athlete before you go in with feedback or any kind of criticism because, like I've mentioned, you don't know where their headspace is. You don't know how disappointed they are with themselves. You don't know if they're angry or you don't know how they're feeling. So if you just right off the bat just go in with the criticism, hey, you didn't do this. Why didn't you score? You see what you did. You're gonna miss your opportunities. You're not gonna go far. Just take a step back and be a listener. Say, how did you feel today? Or how do you think that game went? Or Just start with something positive and listen to what they have to say before you go in with feedback. And my last take home strategy is new weekly goals. So you want to encourage your athlete to come up with new goals every week regarding improvement and talk about it at the end of each week. So, for example, eventually in my swimming experience, what my coach had me do is every week she would pick a skill for me that I needed to work on. So, one of my weaknesses was breaststroke. Now, to this day, I'm still not efficient in breaststroke, and I don't think I ever will be. However, all she wanted me to do was try and show her that the sport was more than me winning or me doing things correctly, but more so, I want to see you grow and I want to see you improve overall. So she would say, okay, let's this week, let's focus on your arms. Hey, once you nail that technique down, boom, you've met your goal. The next week would be, okay, let's work on your kicks because, your kicks are a little wobbly. So let's kind of every practice, I want you every time that we do breaststroke, I want you to really think about the stroke that you're doing and I want you to slow down the movement and just go through the motions. Once I achieved that goal, we would move on to the next goal and the next goal. So instead of telling them, all right, well, you're never doing that again, let's say, hey, let's break it down into little chunks. And then, hey, what do you want me to talk to coach about? Do you want me to ask them what can I do at home? What can we practice on? And just hearing that, it's going to alleviate a lot of pressure for your athlete. And these are my references that I used. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so very much for everything you have done this semester. I truly enjoyed taking the course. As I've mentioned multiple times, I definitely think I have a potential interest in expanding my career regards to sports psychology. I think that this is something that every parent should really learn about. I think that as a coach myself, this class has been so informative for me, but also as a teacher, I've applied a lot of what we've learned in class to teaching and how to be better for my students and be better even for like my home life with my brother. This class has done wonders for me, and so I really appreciate that you've given us as students the opportunity to learn everything that you know and even given us this project. I really enjoyed it and I wish you the best in your future endeavors and I thank you again.